places I've ever been. What's going on, y'all? In this video, we're going to be talking about Ubud. More specifically, my top 5 things that I love doing there. Stick around because number 1 might surprise you. Now, you might be confused if you already watched my Canggu Bali video because Canggu is my favorite place in Bali. So why did we go to Ubud? Well, number 1, it is beautiful, and we're going to be talking about that in this video. And number 2, Olga's never been there, Daniel's never been there, and Julia loved the jungle because it is breathtaking. So we had to spend a little bit of time in Ubud so they could experience it, so we could get back down to our roots. I'll talk about that in a minute. And also so we could go explore some beautiful places. But unfortunately, right off the bat, and I'm talking about the very first day, Daniel and Julia both got Bali belly. You see, we went to this traditional restaurant, and the reason why I use quotations is because it was more modernized than olden style, but it was still traditional Balinese food. Even though the food was delicious, they both decided to have this great, delicious tea that was iced, and the ice gave them both Bali belly. Meaning, Julia and Daniel were out for a solid 24 hours, and I had to play nurse. So I was driving all over the place with our little tiny scooter, which, by the way, the brakes didn't even work on the first day. I had to get a new one to make sure that I could get medicine for both of them so they didn't die. Because when I went into their rooms, it was like a scary movie. The lights were off, they were under the covers for a solid 24 hours, and both of them would just make groaning sounds like, because it was absolutely horrible. Now, after they got over Bali belly, the trip actually started to happen how we envisioned it in the first place. So we first got to experience our beautiful villa, which was absolutely amazing, by the way. In the forest, you could hear all the birds, all the animals. We had a beautiful pool and such a nice open area. We experienced the villa, and then we went off into some of our adventures, which brings us to my top 5 favorite things that we did in Ubud. Now, I can't recap everything, and that's why we're focusing on the top 5, and I'm going to go from least favorite to top favorite. So number 5 is experiencing the beautiful food of Ubud. Now, the reason why I have this ranked at top 5 instead of my number 1 or 2 is because, in my opinion, Ubud doesn't have as good as restaurants as Canggu or other places around Bali, but the food is still delicious. We actually went to this Italian restaurant where the pizza was delicious. It was so damn good. But the reason why this is also ranked as number 5 is because, first off, a gecko pooped in Cade's food. We needed to make sure that we cleaned it up right away. And then secondly, Cade actually got Bali belly there as well, ended up blowing out his tiny little Balinese thong diaper because they don't have regular diapers. We had to run him down to an ice cream shop down the street to clean out his ass. I know, little gross. I didn't give you a warning before I explained that, but it was disgusting. But the pizza was delicious. Number 4, and kind of keeping with the food theme, would be Tiz Cafe. This was actually a beautiful spot. They had massive swings overhanging the rice fields. All right, they had a beautiful restaurant on top of the rice fields. But the cool thing about this little cafe and this restaurant is that you were able to tour the rice field. So we ended up going down this super cool path over this little river and climbing up onto the top of the rice field patios where you were walking through them. And the view was beautiful. It was honestly one of the most breathtaking places that I've been in Ubud. We never went there before when we traveled back to Bali in 2019. So being able to go there today was absolutely amazing. Now, number 3, and the reason why I'm holding my phone is most likely Gogaja Temple. I apologize if I'm fucking butchering that. You guys can Google it and figure it out. Long story short, when you go to this temple, it's actually called the Elephant Temple, if I'm not mistaken, when you check it out on Google as well. You have to wear robes, all right, like these little skirts. And they gave me a red one, and I looked like a fucking Spartan because I was straight up in Spartan 300 mode. But it was very cool because I'm a history buff, even though I don't actually know anything about history. I just like experiencing it. I like going to ruins. I like going to temples. I like going to castles. I like taking walks around things like that that have been here for years, decades, because to me, that's why I do what I do. To be remembered forever. I want to leave my stamp on this world, and being able to stand where people stood hundreds of years ago is very, very cool to me. Now, the reason why it's not ranked 1 or 2 is because the mosquitoes got real goddamn bad and the walking was insane. You guys want to talk about heat? Make sure you bring a lot of water, because that jungle heat that you experience when walking through this temple and looking at these beautiful ruins will make you sweat in places you've never experienced before. Number 2, and let's be real, this is most likely everybody's favorite part of Ubud, is the monkey forest. All right, it's not ranked number 1 for me because I told you mine was going to surprise you, but the monkey forest is honestly breathtaking. It's so cool. All right, you get to see a lot of wild monkeys. Don't get it twisted. These are not monkeys in a zoo. They can go wherever they want in Bali. They choose to stay in the sanctuary because they get taken care of, they get food, and they get treated really well. And it was super cool when we went, because when we went back in 2019, there wasn't this happening. But now there was actually this huge ceremony where they had a massive bonfire and a bunch of drum playings and people dancing. It was great. And then also something that made me laugh is Olga and Julia almost got attacked by a monkey. And the reason why that makes me laugh is because if you guys rewind back to 2019, I almost got attacked by a monkey, and I was actually vlogging it, and I almost hit the guy with my camera. All right, they're fucking vicious. Don't get it twisted. They will bang each other right in front of you and then bite you for watching. Number 1, my favorite part about Ubud was gymnasium. All right, the place that we ended up going to train on a daily basis to get content and to align myself with my goals. Again, guys, I told you that number 1 was going to surprise you. You see, I'm a boring entrepreneur. I just am. No matter where we travel, Australia, Canggu, Seminyak, Gold Coast, Bali, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I'm traveling to a country or a different city, I'm going to find something to put me into routine so I can build and scale my multi-million-dollar business. And I can also build and scale my massive brand that I've been able to culture online. It is what I am passionate about. All right, fitness has become my foundation of the life that I am currently living. So that is why the gym is usually one of my favorite parts of everywhere we go, because I'm able to lean into my goals and experience some new things and meet some cool fucking people while I'm there. Now, the cool thing about gymnasium is that it was kind of like a sanctuary. I think it was a resort, but we didn't stick around long enough for me to ask enough questions, but it was massive. Huge pools, huge activities, massive shops, coffee shops. It was probably one of the nicest places that I have ever seen in Bali when it comes down to a gym experience, and I loved it. Now, Ubud also has a special place in my heart because that's actually where Brian started the business Aesthetic Nation that transformed me from a drug addict ironworker to who you guys see today. You see, if you guys are not familiar with Brian's startup story, I'm actually going to get him to clip in a little video of him talking about it and how he started Aesthetic Nation in the first place.
So Ubud in Indonesia, in Bali, has a really special place in both of our hearts because this is literally where it all began. My first ever trip to Bali, I went there and I literally had less than $500 in my bank account. And I realized that on that trip, if I didn't make money, I was gonna get stuck in Bali. And so I was living in Ubud at the time. I literally rented a room that was $10 a night because that's all I could afford. Thankfully, you can survive on $20 a day. And I had just enough to make it through the trip, but not enough to get back home and then resume regular life. And so on that trip, I launched a challenge called the Soft to Shredded 6-Week Challenge, made $5,000 in 3 weeks. I was working at a coffee shop literally every single day. It was called Anomaly Coffee Shop. There was also this place called Ubud, where it was like a co-workspace. Unfortunately, it's shut down now. It sucks because every time I go back there, I try to take a look at it. But Ubud is like, it literally is where Aesthetic Nation began. And if it wasn't for Ubud, there'd be no Aesthetic Nation. And if it wasn't for Aesthetic Nation, there'd be no PT Domination. If there was no PT Domination, we wouldn't be here filming this video in this dope-ass office with this cool-ass hat.
It's not shut down anymore.
I just found out it's not shut down anymore. That's fucking dope.
Now, whenever we go to Ubud, I see that coffee shop and I'm reminded of our roots. Without Brian getting stranded in Bali, sitting down at that coffee shop, starting Aesthetic Nation, we wouldn't have built what we built. I wouldn't have got out of the life that I was struggling in the past. We wouldn't have transformed thousands of lives through fitness. And then PT Domination, the current business that we have, would have never become a reality. That's cool to me. So even though the jungle vibe isn't my ultimate destination, it's Daniel's. He loves it. All right. The beach is more my style. Ubud will always have a special place in my heart. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you want to hear more about Bali, like, comment, and subscribe right fucking now. If you haven't watched the Canggu video where I broke down my top favorite things, go check it out. And also, make sure you are subscribed for the future videos breaking down the cost of Bali versus the cost of Canada. I'm telling you right now, it's gonna blow your fucking mind. Your money will take you so much farther when you travel to Bali. So not only do you get better culture, happier people, more delicious food, but you will seem like a millionaire, even though you're only making a couple $1,000s a month. Don't miss that video or you'll regret it. Peace.